Here's your very quick introduction to Greenbank. There is more detailed information for you in the black book which you'll find on the coffee table in the sitting room. Please make sure that all of your party observe the fire precautions, which are: keep all doors closed at night, don't use any candles, if using the open fire ensure that the spark guard is used whenever the fire is unwatched, keep combustible materials well away from the fire and the stove, and of course smoking is absolutely forbidden. To get the key, come round to the back door and attached to the frame is the key safe. Open the flap and set the digits to the numbers that will give you. Now you can open it and get the key. When you are leaving, please lock doors, put the key back in the key safe and scramble the digits. You'll find a second house key in the key cabinet just inside the door. If your visit is during winter, you will certainly need to use the stove as it provides part of the heat for the central heating. The first thing that you need to know is that the stove can't be used in a power cut. If the power goes off while the stove is lit, please turn the air intakes to minimum and then turn the damper handle, which is about shoulder height on the flue, to horizontal position. The fire will then slowly die down. During use, the glass in the stove door gets very hot. If you have small children, you should bring the spark guard from the sitting room to put in front of the stove so that the glass can't be touched. The stove body does get hot, but not dangerously so. You can touch it momentarily. The hearth lights, like all the floor level lighting, is low voltage LED and is perfectly safe to touch. You can empty ash from the stove when it is hot or cold using the metal ash carrier which is kept in the utility room. However, you must not empty the ash carrier into the wheelie bin until it is completely cold. Bring the ash carrier to the stove for emptying the ash. If the ashtray in the stove is too hot to touch, there's a metal handle that you can use to safely grab it. Tilt the ash carrier to nearly horizontal and carefully slide the tray into the carrier and bring it upright slowly. This avoids getting a cloud of ash rising into the air. Once the tray is back in place, you can use the poker to clear the grate. While the stove is cool, you might want to clean the glass, as this can't be done when it's hot. Use a tiny bit of liquid soap on a sponge scourer, and usually the glass comes clean quite easily. There's a stove glass cleaner spray under the sink which you can use if you find a stubborn mark. Finally, wipe it dry with a bit of kitchen roll. We supply coal. There may be some wood in the woodshed, but we can't guarantee it. To light a fire, you need dry newspaper or some firelighters, and you need dry kindling. If you're not familiar with firelighting, kindling is small bits of wood that will light easily from a flame. You can't light coal just from paper or cardboard. You can buy firelighters and kindling at the post office. Lay crumpled papers or firelighters first, plenty of kindling over them, and some pieces of coal balanced on top. Ensure that the airflow is good, that means the grate reasonably clear and air intakes open, and then light the fire. It's best to close the door as soon as possible to avoid getting smoke in the room. Remember, don't use the stove in a power cut. An electric pump is needed to circulate the water, and if it goes over 80 degrees, the stove alarm at the back of the hall will sound. You can keep the grate clear using the agitator handle, but if it jams, don't use excess force. You can adjust the air intakes to regulate the burning rate, clockwise to close. The damper handle on the flue should normally be in vertical position. The coal shed and woodshed keys are kept in the key cabinet in the utility room. The coal shed is directly outside the back door. The woodshed is round the other side of the utility room from the back door. Now meet the heating system. It is central heating, but not as you know it. It's an unusual system with large tanks of water heated by electricity overnight. Heat is supplemented by any heat from the stove. In addition, there's a large storage heater in the hall. The overall heat supply is about 30% from overnight heating of the tanks, 30% from the storage heater, and 40% from the stove if the stove burns for 16 hours a day. On arrival, the stove won't be lit, so the house will be underheated for the first few hours of your stay. Do get to know the touchscreen controls in the utility room. The settings page gives you control over central heating times and desired room temperature. The computer control regulates the heating to ensure that some heat is left for the end of the day. Greenbank is a large and airy house with little insulation, and to get full advantage of the central heating, you will need to use the thermostatic radiator valves to get heat where you want it. When everybody is downstairs, you don't want the upstairs radiators taking the lion's share of the heat. The fan-assisted storage heater is independent of all this, and the top dial controls the amount of heat stored for tomorrow. The lower dial is the thermostat setting for controlling the fan. The fan operates morning and evening. Air temperature thermostat. The induction hob has touch controls. Hold your finger over the on-off button for a second or two to switch it on. Then press one of the ring selectors to choose which one to control, then the up and down arrows to select the power level. If you want to turn one ring off, select it and then press both up and down at the same time. The oven has a selector control on the left and temperature control on the right. And also on the touchpad, the top left, is the fast heating control, which is useful. The other useful thing on there is the reminder, which you press the clock once and then press plus to choose the amount of time. The dishwasher also has touch controls. On the right is the on-off button. Just hold your finger over it. It doesn't need much pressure or any pressure. And then the program button selects which program. Finally, you can set a delay time so that it runs at night. Just closing the door then will make it start. To switch on the washing machine, just turn the dial on the front to an appropriate program. You'll then see the display light up, and you've got two things shown. One is the time that the program runs for, the other is the spin speed, and you can adjust the spin speed using this button and adjust the time if you want to using that button. Finally, to set it going, you just press the grey button. But before you've done that, you will have put the powder into the tray, and it goes in the left-hand compartment. There's also a condensing dryer. As it's condensing, it collects the water in a tray at the bottom, and the first thing to do is to empty the water, because it won't run if that's full. Just take it to the sink and turn it upside down. Inside the dryer door, you'll find the first filter, and that should be emptied every time the machine is run as well. You just take it to the sink, open it up, and flush any material out of it. Having done that, you just set the controls. You turn it either to the left, which is for time, that's probably the most straightforward, and then press the start button. There's also an option to delay the start, so you can delay it by 3 hours, 6 hours or 9 hours if you want it to run at night. Now the satellite television. Use the Heyer remote to turn the television on and off, and use the Goodman's remote for selecting the channel. The television channels start at 101 and the radio channels start at 701. Feel free to use the phone. That's all. Enjoy your stay, and if you need help with anything, don't hesitate to call us.